Okay, so here we have the Elementary 3A. This is at Sugarloaf Dressage. By the way, I didn't have like a proper intro, but yeah. So the first test of the day, as I just said, was the Elementary 3A. I was honestly very happy with this test. I talk about everything more in depth and how it actually scored at the end of this video, but I'm just going to talk through it. I was very happy with it. I found Jep had a fairly good amount of impulsion. She was quite willing. Our first lengthen was really nice. You can't really see from this angle, but just take my word for it. And here we come across the short side just for some working trot, which was quite nice. She did come out of the contact a little bit there, but only slightly. Here's our first shoulder in. Honestly, in my mind, she nailed it. We've been scoring so well with our shoulder ins at the last few comps, getting 8s and 8.5s, and I felt like that's what they deserved today as well. Second one was honestly felt even better. It's harder to see from this angle, though. It doesn't look like it's better, but it was. And here we have our rein back. Was not the best rein back, honestly. I didn't stop for long enough. And then, yeah, just not as smooth as it could have been, if I'm being picky. Here we come along for our first walk to canter. And keep in mind, I haven't gotten 3 clean walk to canters ever in an elementary, and then we just got our first one. She may have gotten all 3 at times, but they were never clean. There's our length and canter, which felt pretty nice. Then I bring her back. She came back quite nicely. Here we have our 10-meter circle. I felt that one was quite nice and a good size. Here we have my rider error. So this is supposed to be counter canter across the diagonal. I half halted her a bit too much around the corner, and then she fell into trot, then went back on the wrong leg. Because it's supposed to be a counter canter, so she has to be on the right leg. So I knew that was going to score badly. But I thought the rest of the test was really nice, so I felt like we'd made up for it in the rest of it. Here we have our second walk to canter, shorten the strides in the walk, and little bit of a head, coming up out of the contact, but still cleaner than the other ones I saw. Shade. There's our lengthen canter. Probably could have showed a bit more lengthen, but nonetheless she was very uphill. I was very happy with it. I could have slowed her down a bit more into that first half of the 10-meter circle, but the second half was quite nice and clean. Then we come across for our second counter canter. This one was nice. We did get a third for this, which was really nice, and I talk about my score at the end, because this felt like the best she's ever gone in an elementary. Obviously, I had my little rider error, but taking that out, this felt like the best elementary we've done. And I was very, very happy with this test. So here I shortened the strides in walk, asked for the walk to canter, clean, nice, very happy. Working canter, and then we come back to our downwards transition to trot. And we just have our working trot until we go across the diagonal for our final lengthen. I thought she had some nice bounce in her trot. I was very happy with it. Here we have our lengthen, which I felt she showed a good amount of lengthen as well, too. I mean, you guys can make your own decisions on what score you would think we would have gotten for this. As I said, I talk about it at the end, but I think it deserved a lot higher of a score than it actually got, considering it was probably the best we've done this test, apart from my error, and it was literally the lowest score we've ever gotten in an elementary, when we've done some shocking elementaries, as you guys would know. Anyway, we still got a third place, so that's something. Yeah. Miss Mep just did a really nice test with some rider errors, but Jeppy herself was good. Talisha was just a bit silly, and she's just eating away as we have a bit of a gap. It's quite warm here, so she's just naked. Now our second and final test of the day is the Novice 2B. It was a nice test. I mean, it was clean, just didn't feel as nice as the elementary to me. but, well, I'll talk through it. Bit of a dodgy takeoff from that halt, but it's got a nice swing in the trot, nice impulsion. Here we come across for our first lengthen. She showed a nice, see, not as much lengthen as she showed in the elementary, as you would have just watched. And then we come up the center for our first leg yield. The first leg yield was definitely better than the second one. This one was just more free-flowing, and she was quite straight in the neck, and she wasn't leading with her hindquarters or her shoulder in this. But again, it's hard to see from this angle. But it was quite a fluent leg yield. And it scored quite well too. Both our leg yields did, despite me not thinking they did. Well, no, the first one felt good, but the second one didn't feel that great. Anyway, cross a diagonal for our second lengthen. You can't tell how much lengthen I really have in that. Doesn't look like a large amount though. And then we come up for our second leg yield. I mean, this test is quite nice actually. It just didn't feel as nice as I thought. I haven't actually watched this, so maybe it did look better than the elementary, but it just didn't feel better. This walk to canter, leg yield wasn't that great. As you could see, she had a bit of hesitation at the start and then went. So the second half of it was quite well, but the first half was not. And then we have our walk. It's just all sped up because boring. And then we come for our trot into our first canter, which I don't think was a very nice, oh no, that was a nice transition. Here we have our 15-meter circle at P. It was alright. Quite a nice little canter. Yeah, quite nice. And now we have our lengthen. Very uphill, which is really nice. Very nice. Then I bring her back to a working canter across the diagonal, and at X downwards transition to trot. And then at F we have our right canter lead, which is quite an awkward one because it's like right as you get on the corner, but it's nice. And she was actually a bit late with that transition too. That's right, I do remember that. Me. At V we have our 15-meter working canter circle. This circle was nice, so she was more engaged and her frame was more consistent in this. A lot nicer canter. Her her right's always her better side though. There we have our lengthen canter. And here we have our downward transition at M. I had a little freak out in the test because I was like, oh my god, am I supposed to be cantering to M? And I was like, too late now, but I was. Here we have our long range trot. So where she needs to go long and low. And the second half of this circle by memory was better. The first half she didn't really stretch out much. There we go, she stretches her nose out a little bit. Still needs more, but it was something. And then we come up the center line. And this has been halt, and it's the end of the test. This scored much higher than our elementary, by the way, and we actually got a second in this out of a large field. Like, this was a much bigger field than the elementary was, and I actually beat the person who came second in the elementary, so I beat her in this test, which was nice. Good little pony, well done, Jeppy. Pat pat. She's just so sleepy. Okay, so my face is extremely red and I look really gross for some reason. I've just got out of the shower and thought I would sum up today. So obviously I did all my voiceovers. My best test definitely felt like my elementary, even though it did not score like I believe it should have. I had one rider error of me, so where Jep fell out of the canter and then went back on the wrong leg, which to her she thought was the right leg because like it was a counter canter, so she was going on what felt like the right leg but it wasn't. But that was my fault. I half halted a little too much and she thought I meant to go back to a trot, and then she thought I meant to go in a simple change and change leads even though I wanted the right lead. Even after with that mistake I still thought the rest of the test was going to score quite well. It did not. The judges for everyone were quite harsh on that as well, I noticed. I think it was just some strict judges. I did end up with a 3rd place. It's orange. I don't know why, because normally 3rd places are white, but I checked, it has a 3rd on it. So yeah, we still managed to get 3rd for that. I just wasn't happy with the score, but I'm learning how to deal with like disappointment, because I came out of the ring happy because I got 3 clean walk to canners, which hasn't happened ever. Like, we've gotten 3 walk to canners a couple times, but they were never actually like clean. It was either her jumping into it, rushing, or chucking her head, where these, they were not perfect but they were clean to me. So I was still happy, and even when I got my score, it's disappointing to not get the score I felt we deserved, but it's still nonetheless, I was happy with the test, so that's all that matters. It was good to get a 3rd place anyway. They just were quite harsh scores for everyone. I then did the Novice 2B, came out of it thinking, like, there were no mistakes or anything, but I came out of it being like, you know what, didn't feel anywhere near as good as my elementary. And I had that little thing in the back of my mind, and I was like, I guarantee that that'll score so much higher. They were different judges, by the way. But I was like, I guarantee that my Novice will score so much higher, even though it felt nowhere near as good as my elementary. Of course it did. It was a bigger field in the Novice as well, and I managed to bring home a 2nd. Surprise, surprise. I also beat one of the people who beat me in the elementary. So the person who came 2nd in the elementary, they only had beaten me in the elementary by 1%. I beat them in the Novice by 6%, because they were, I think they were like 2 or 3 places below me in the Novice. I got a score, I'll tell you my scores by the way. So in the elementary, the winner got a 61%. I didn't see the winner, I don't know what they went around like, but they were also the one that won my Novice. I got a average score of 56, which is terrible. I think that is the worst score we've gotten in an elementary, and it was far from our worst elementary that we've done, which is ridiculous. So the winner got a 61 and the 2nd place got a 57. It was just ridiculous. I've done a horrible elementary like a couple months ago where we got none of our walk to canners, and it was just like the whole test was messy. And then the Novice I got a 66%, even though it felt nowhere near as good as the elementary. I don't know. I really don't know. But at least we came home with a qualifying score, so the elementary was definitely not a qualifying score. Definitely not. Not with that percentage. But our Novice is a qualifying score for both Youth Nationals, which is under 21 Nationals for next year, and for Open States next year. So that's super good to get a score that was high enough for both of those. And obviously our scores from last week were much higher, but also keep in mind that official dressage scores so much harsher than any other, like, so last week was Pony Club where we got 75 and a 66 I believe in the elementary. But official dressage always scores harsher than Pony Club dressage, eventing dressage, all of those other things that have dressage, even the unofficial comps, none of them score as harsh as official, because these are all going towards qualifying scores for big comps, so they are very strict with who they give those types of marks to. Hopefully we get some, I mean, this was only our first official comp back from Youth Nationals this year, so to come home with one qualifying score that qualifies us for 2 comps was honestly all I really wanted. It would have been good to get one for the elementary too, but it's our first comp back from Nationals, so I'm happy to just walk away with one for next year. That's already getting us one step closer to going next year, so that's something. But yeah, so that was a bit of a sum up from my day. The next comp I will be doing, I believe, is Camden Dressage. I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll see you guys next week.